Celebrating 50 years of ANA. Conversations on the past, present, and future of self-determination.
And Petu Washte Michikuapi, Patrice Kunesh Imachiapi. Good afternoon, good day, my relatives. I'm Patrice Kunesh. I'm the administrator of the Administration for Native Americans at the Administration for Children and Families at the Department of Health and Human Services. And I am honored to be here this afternoon with Larry Wright Jr., who is the Executive Director of the National Congress of American Indians. Welcome, Larry, and thank you so much for being here.
You bet.
You've had a big week this week, so I'm so happy that you were able to fit us into your busy schedule.
Absolutely, it's all part of it.
Oh, great. So the Native American, the National Congress of American Indians is celebrating 80 years, right?
Yes.
80 years since it's established. ANA is celebrating 50 years. And I think there's a lot of crossover in our missions around self-determination, self-governance, empowerment, and unity. And I'm wondering, you're leading this national organization at this momentous time. So what are some of those crossover lessons that you think we both share over the course of this span of 50 to 80 years?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of synergy between both of our programs. NCAI was established in 1944 as a result of the termination era that was going on, and the need to protect tribal sovereignty and have a unified voice of Indian country here in Washington, D.C. to help protect that. And without our tribal sovereignty, it makes everything else that much more difficult without protecting who we are as a people. When ANA was established in 1974, with the understanding of needing the economic driver to help prop up that sovereignty or protect that sovereignty, those two things just go hand in hand. And we know now, 50 years later with ANA, it's just as critical today as is NCAI, as it was back then. The attacks on tribal sovereignty and our languages, our way of life, have become more acute, and the new ways to go after tribal sovereignty has diversified it in and of itself. And so that continued battle to help give tribes the opportunities, the education, the knowledge, and the tools to protect themselves, become more educated and more sophisticated in how we run our programs, and to be able to fight those battles. And the economic opportunities that ANA helps with is a critical piece to that.
Well, the challenges back in 1944 was existence, just the right to exist, because, as you said, it was termination. And it was termination by, eliminating, severing that government-to-government relationship, but it was also separating children and families and breaking up communities. Then ANA was established in the era of self-determination, and we've really come a long way economically, socially, and then recently President Biden has announced a new executive order for a new era of self-determination. What resonates with you in that message about the new era?
Well, from a personal standpoint, my tribe was one of the last tribes to be terminated in the 60s. And so our tribe has fought through that. So we go from being removed from our homelands to a portion of us coming back, getting established again in our homelands, and being terminated.
Could I interrupt you a minute?
Bet.
You're Ponca, right?
Ponca, yes.
Could you just tell a little bit about that history? Because I remember talking to you a few years ago when you were talking about wealth in Indian country, and that wealth was not about money, it was really about land and connections to the land and the people.
Yeah.
Just share a little bit about that.
So yes, I'm from the Ponca tribe in Nebraska, and in the late 1800s, our tribe was forcibly removed from Nebraska to Oklahoma. our reservation, our last reservation boundaries under our last treaty, when they did the Fort Laramie Treaty in 1868, they included our reservation in that. And so instead of making it right and recognizing our treaty, they decided it was easier just to move us to Oklahoma. And so that's our backstory. And again, so some of our people came back to Nebraska.
Right.
But you know, that whole, and our tribe is no different. This is every tribe. The power of place that is our home, our homeland, where our people are buried, where we know our medicines, where we know the hunting and fishing and all of those things that our people knew forever. All of that's gone. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to come home. But what that has done over the years, created two separate Ponca tribes, different governmentally, same culturally, language, history. But it has had a major impact on our culture and traditions because of that separation. But being back in our homeland is critical for us, and we know how important that is.
Oh, that's such an impressive story with me, and in statutory hall in Congress, the statute coming from Nebraska is your chief.
Yes. Yeah, our chief standing bearer, and that was the reason for our group to come home. His only son, after we were moved to Oklahoma, was dying. Yeah. And he made his dad promise that he would be buried back in his homeland.
Right.
And so several months after his son passed, that group of people, 30 Poncas, came back to Nebraska and ultimately got to Nebraska with our relatives, so Omaha, and then the military finally caught up with them and then tried to take them back to Oklahoma. But it was a court case, a federal court case, that resulted that for the first time in United States history and with United States law, that Indians were considered humans in the eyes of the law.
He said quite famously, "I am a man."
Absolutely.
And as a lawyer reading that in the Supreme Court of the United States, as a Native person, I am a man. I have standing. I have a right to be here. That's just, again, like earth-shaking to me.
Yeah, I mean, and so when you say that and then you juxtapose how the decision came out in that case, it was simply the judge reading the dictionary, what is a human? And making that determination that by definition, how do you not say Indians are humans?
Right, right. So ANA at 50, we've come a long way. We came out of the era of the war on poverty. We haven't conquered the war on poverty. We still have such dire needs in our community, but I think we've really learned how to address many of those needs. What would you say are the most critical policy issues facing tribal governments right now? And I'm asking you because we also in ANA are really attuned to how do we build that capacity, what are the issues we need to address more, and what can we be doing better to help our community partners in that place.
Yeah, I think when you look at where, you know, the vast differences between tribal economies, those tribes that have been able to take advantage of opportunities afforded to them and have had very diversified economies that can help support their people with social programs, work, those types of endeavors, versus other tribes when we know that some of the poorest counties yet in the country today are on reservation land. You know, 50, 60, 70, somewhere 80% unemployment rates. And when there's no opportunities well, if we look at what COVID taught us in the aftermath of that, the need to have diversified economies is huge. And one of the things that makes it even tougher in our reservations, in our homelands, and in rural areas in general, is access to broadband. And so, you know, we talk about, you know, how many Zoom meetings have you been on this week alone? When you look at that, some of our areas don't even have access to that. And so when they're that limited in scope, it makes it tough to
Sure.
get access to.
That's
to those.
telemedicine and
Absolutely.
distance learning, all
Absolutely.
the things, and digital economy,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. But able to have access, so bring that into you. And, you know, just another outcropping of that, if anybody that's done anything with federal grants in the reporting process, if you can't upload it and use a computer to do it, you can't do it.
Right. We have a special exception in all of grants.gov because Indian country does not have that connection, or it's so slow, or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I've even heard, well, we've had people that not take advantage of the COVID funding
Oh, yeah.
because they couldn't do the reporting piece. And so they've been left out altogether.
So let me ask you, is technology is a good thing because it brings all these benefits. Is it also harmful to cultural ways, to sort of being in a community that is intact, when you're being constantly drawn out, or your attention's diverted?
Sure. You know, I think there's thoughts on both sides of that issue. And you have to respect both. And sometimes we want to be careful of if people have access to our cultural ways, our languages, all of those things, can it be misappropriated?
Right.
And so in the era of now of AI, that's a new concern for us. So when we talk about tribal digital sovereignty, data sovereignty for tribes, you know, that is a concern. But at the same time, on the other side of that, you could say, can technology help keep our culture and languages intact? I say that from a personal standpoint because we implemented Zoom before it was Zoom many years ago, and what we wanted to do with our language, lack of language on our part, was tie into our Ponca relatives in Oklahoma, where most of our fluent speakers were.
Okay.
So we wanted to shrink our geography through technology, and we actually we had a Zoom program back then, and our elders would Zoom.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And to start teaching language, and we'd tie them in to our local areas. And so they could sit in Oklahoma and talk to our people in Nebraska and be able to start those language classes.
That's beautiful. I love, quite honestly, going online to listening to the language, to seeing the dance and the music and the drums. I get a lot out of that myself. So I love the expression of culture in that forum.
Well, and if we're going to be mindful of our youth and listen to our youth, that's the medium that they use. And we've seen so much more positivity and so much more revitalization or wanting to learn their culture and their traditions, their language through that technology. So it's bridging both our elders and our youth and
connections.
Absolutely.
I get it. So I learned recently that you were a government and social studies teacher at the high school level.
Recovering.
Still.
Recovering.
And back in the day, you were also very engaged in civics, really sharing the power of civic engagement. And I just thought that's such a awesome story to tell. But I was reflecting on my grandfather, who was born on the Fort Berthold Reservation back in 1902. At that time, he was, the Indian people were not considered citizens of the United States. No right to vote, no right to own property, no right to make decisions of any kind. And now the right to vote is so incredibly important. But I was wondering if you could just share with us a few thoughts about sort of the necessity of civic engagement now for Native people.
Well, 100 years ago, we finally got citizenship to that story.
That's true.
And so we look at all of these, you know, how far we've come, but how far we still need to go. You know, and yes, I taught 9th grade civics and advanced placement government and politics.
Amazing.
Yes. And I had the unique perspective because I was also tribal chairman at the time. And
you were doing both?
I was doing both.
I don't know how that's possible. Ninth grade
I'm a glutton for
civics?
punishment, yeah. But no, one of the best experiences of my life, and really helped me to be more successful with what I do now. And knowing that I was coming to D.C. to advocate on behalf of the tribe, and the importance of having those elected officials know and respect and advocate for us and what we're trying to do. And I found myself every time coming here, I was talking to a new elected official who knew nothing about tribes. And that perspective hit me when I started teaching in that civics, you know, how government works. And all they learned was the American form of government, and it left us out of the curriculum. And so my starting line for all of them was, I don't care who you are, somebody in here could be an elected official someday. And the first time you hear about tribes isn't when you're in the halls of Congress, or as a local mayor or state governor, or in the state legislature, because all of those different levels make decisions that affect us. And so really tried to work that into our curriculum, and I was fortunate enough to work in a district that actually added it to the curriculum. And so the importance of being engaged, whether you were Native or not, and you know how you voted and who you voted for, had a big impact. Even if it just meant you needed to exercise your right to have your voice heard, and that central important issue. But by extension, you know, you need to know all the issues to be an informed voter, and Native issues are part of that consideration.
Did that resonate with the kids?
I sure hope so. I've had a few that come back and said yes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
very good.
Well, you've been a leader of your tribal nation, and now you're a leader of a national Native organization. Sort of, can you give us a sense of the scale of the issues and the drivers of each one?
Yeah, you know, the unique perspective for sure, being a tribal chairman. I was chairman for 11 years and on my tribe. But in this role, you know, NCAI is the voice of Indian country. But in order to amplify that voice, we first need to hear from Indian country. And so being a tribal leader that wanted to be heard, NCAI had always been there for me as that opportunity. And so having that unique perspective and knowing that we need to be out in our Native communities, listening to tribal officials, what are their needs, what are they looking for? And as we operate as the National Congress, we bring those voices together to create consensus, and we advocate on that level. And so, but we have to be in our different regions, understanding all the different issues that face our tribes. We're not monolithic entities. Each tribe is different, culturally rich, geographically diverse, and how do we bring all those issues together? We can be talking about permafrost issues from climate change in Alaska to fires and blizzards in the Great Plains, or you know, fires in California. Everybody's got a different issue, whether it's land, sky, you know, water, all of those things. And that advocacy of saying, you know, the effects of climate change are real, and that's going to be some of the things that, when you asked earlier about what's policy issues, it's those kinds of things. And so Indian country needs to be at the table and part of the solution as we continue to fight. The other piece to those policy issues too is you know, we talked about broadband infrastructure, you know, healthcare, housing, and so you know, we name a lot, but that's just a fraction of the overall picture. And so as we continue to work, and that's the importance of NCAI and needing. So we started out small and just trying to protect that sovereignty, but now that sovereignty is all of those areas of sovereignty: food sovereignty, education sovereignty, health, language, absolutely. So that's
economic development is just a small piece of it,
but a very important piece.
Exactly, it's a good driver. It builds capacity.
Exactly,
and we need to preserve that or promote that. And there's social. You know, I'm at the Department of Health and Human Services, and we see a lot of social needs in Indian country.
And being a tribal leader myself, I've seen that firsthand, the benefit and the partnership with ANA and the importance that it's had just on my tribe.
Right. Well, I wish you all the best in your next 80 years of NCAI, and I hope that we can continue, ANA and NCAI, be good partners and supporting, promoting, and really advancing self-determination for our peoples.
Absolutely. It's critical more now than ever.
Yeah. Wopila.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Celebrating 50 years of ANA. Conversations on the past, present, and future of self-determination. Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.